Hello all. So before we get into the film, yes, I am coming to you bald-faced. I had shaved everything but my mustache so I could be Bob from Bob's Burgers for Halloween. You know, attempting to, get more into the spirit of things and, have more fun. And what we learned from that experience is that when Brandon attempts to be spontaneous and entertaining, it's very much the same result as when Brandon attempts to talk to a woman he finds attractive. The intention is good and the heart is in the right place, but the end result just comes out really, really creepy. So just wanted to cover that in case anyone was wondering why I look fatter than usual. And I'm stalling about talking about this movie. Oh dear me. This is kind of a heartbreaker, and not in the good way, not in the way, oh my god, that was so heartbreaking, oh what a moving performance, in the way of, I was really hoping to like this movie. I was really hoping to, see something grand after the last couple weeks of seeing kind of vain, Oscar bait and, vanity projects to one extent or another. If one thing that these past two movies, First Man and this one, have taught me, it's that I may have been a little harder on Bradley Cooper in Star is Born than I maybe should have been, because in comparing him to other actors turned director and such, it seems like he's actually the best of the bunch, honestly, which sadly isn't saying much, but it's saying something. So this film, in case you haven't heard of it, which again you probably haven't, it's fairly low key. So this is a film written, directed, produced by Rupert Everett, wherein he plays Oscar Wilde in the kind of last maybe year or two before he dies, right after he got released from prison. Now, for those of you who don't know your theatrical history, Oscar Wilde, a fairly famous author, poet, playwright. One of my favorite plays, The Importance of Being Earnest, that's his, was also a homosexual, and back then that was a crime, so he was convicted of homosexuality and sentenced to 2 years at hard labor. And this film details the, kind of that life after he got out of prison up until his death. If you're gonna tell a story, I mean, that's not a bad one to tell. It's not a bad idea. At least in theory, and in practice, and in the way it's done, it leaves a lot to be desired. Simply put, the film is boring. It is a boring, ponderous film, clearly made with a lot of love. Clearly, when somebody writes, directs, and produces and stars in a film, clearly, it is a project of deep passion for them. Okay? And that shows. It shows, Rupert Everett clearly has great passion for the subject matter. Being an openly gay man himself, I'm sure there are a lot of, lessons and things that he's taken from the character, as I think a lot of people can, gay or not. But I'm afraid it lacks something in the delivery. I think that this would have been a good film, and I don't know if I don't know the history of how this movie got made. If he shopped it around to other people and they didn't want to do it, so he kind of said, "Screw it, I'll do it myself." But if that's not the case, then I think this is a film that would have benefited from an outside eye of a different director. Because I think the main creative force was too close to it to really see what was happening. So first of all, story structure. Let's talk about that for a second. As I've said, the film takes place in from when Oscar Wilde gets out of prison to his death. And the problem with the presentation of this, and again, that's a good idea in theory, but in the practice of it, when we meet him to almost the end of the film, it is an unbearably bleak and depressing film. Now, that is not a bad thing in and of itself, but the problem is that we get no context for his life beforehand. We're told, and we see very, very brief flashbacks, very brief, of his life before and the consequences of the actions that he's made. But we don't see him start off high and fall. It's not a story of Oedipus, who started out with the king as the king and, kind of realized what he had done and, fell to earth. He starts out already fallen, and therefore, when you start out depressed, you just kind of get steadily more depressed as the fucking movie goes on. There's nowhere dramatically for you to go. I'm directing a Shakespeare play right now, and you keep telling the kids that you start out on one emotion. If you start out as angry as you possibly can be, the monologue has nowhere to go. The character has nowhere to grow, and it becomes noise. You stay at one vocal range the entire time, one set of inflections the entire time, and the speech becomes dull. And that's what happens here. The movie stays at one kind of emotional point, and it's that point for the entire fucking movie. Now, I get what he was going for. Obviously showing that those 2 years and, everything he suffered had left him a broken man, and he tries to find joy in things, but can't. So I understand what he was trying to go for, but it didn't work. What instead we got was a film with not a lot of context, but wanting us to have all these emotions for a man we don't know. And it doesn't help that the film is also framed in such a way, all the other characters are framed in such a way that it's almost as if you're walking in the third act of a 3-act play. And that there were 2 acts before this where these characters are introduced, their relationships explained, who they are to him and who they are to each other has been established, but none of that is ever shown to us, and we're kind of left going, okay, why do these 2 characters hate each other? Mr. Chirpy keeps falling over. Why do these 2 characters hate each other? Why are these people doing what they're doing? It's very, and again, the film acts like we already know who all these people are and what their relationships are, and we don't. This is a film, this is the weirdest sentence I've said on this show, I think. This is this film that makes a gay orgy look like the most depressing fucking thing ever. Yeah, it's like the saddest orgy you've ever seen on film. So yeah, so there's that aspect. Directorially, this film falls into the trap of I don't know if this is the first time Rupert Everett has ever directed or not, but I can tell that, obviously, again, a film that he is very passionate about and wants to tell the story of, but he's a little too eager directorially. There are too many artsy shots and artsy things that lead nowhere or that don't really tell us anything. Every new director or every indie director or every director trying to tell some story they're incredibly passionate about seems to think they're Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. Because Citizen Kane is one of those films that's revolutionary not only for the story and the way it's told, but the filming techniques in which it was used. But the difference is that Orson Welles was smart enough to use these techniques subtly. There's small things like the fact that the camera is always low when you know, it's one of the stronger characters is talking, so we have to look up at them, or the camera's always face down, so the, you know, the weaker characters have to look up to it. You know, subtle things like that, you know, that helped tell the story, and had never been done before, or had never been done to that extent at the very least, but at the same time didn't pull your attention too far from the film itself. You know, didn't draw attention to the fact, ooh, I'm doing an arty shot. And this one falls prey to that. You know, ooh, I'm doing an arty shot. So again, where I feel like kind of owe Bradley Cooper maybe a little bit of an apology is, at least with Star is Born, he told his story fairly conventionally. There weren't a lot of crazy camera angles or weird shots of the sunrise or whatever. You know, that were so out of place, where we're just trying to show how artsy he was. You know, Bradley Cooper, I'm sure you're watching this. You know, bully for you. And again, I feel that this is an instance of an artist really wanting to tell a story and wanting to use all these things to make so that we see the story as beautifully as he clearly saw it in his mind, but I don't believe it got there. So that's Rupert Everett as the director. We got to talk a little bit about Rupert Everett as the main actor, because this is one of those movies that in the trailers and the poster, it always wants to show quotes of, you know, just how great this performance is and how revolutionary this performance is. And I'm sorry, it's just not. It's just very... I'm not even sure I have a name for this. I have a name for everything, but I don't have a name for this yet. But there are instances where actors, especially actors who are really going for that Oscar, will, you know, play a historic character. And they will fill their performance with so many little ticks, so many little gestures, so many, you know, vocal things, you know, and that, you know, to really show that they're getting into the mind of this character and they're really becoming another character, that the performance seems almost faker than anything. I had this problem with Daniel Day-Lewis's performance of Abraham Lincoln, that everybody said, oh, this is so brilliant, so revolutionary. It was just painfully overdone. It was overdone in its subtlety, if that makes any sense. And I feel like that's kind of the problem here. I really think, and I'm making a leap here. I'm making a guess, and I don't have anything to back this up. I really think that not only was this a story that Rupert Everett wanted to tell, I think this was a performance he really wanted to give. I think Rupert Everett kind of wanted to show the world what he could do. You know, for those of you who don't know Rupert Everett's name, I'm not really surprised. He was a big deal for about 20 minutes back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when he was in a god-awful Julia Roberts movie, but, I repeat myself, called My Best Friend's Wedding, where he played her, her gay best friend. And he kind of then became the stereotypical, not stereotypical in a bad way necessarily, but kind of the quintessential gay best friend. He was America's new gay best friend, and that's what he was playing a lot. And much to his credit as a person, he is an openly gay man, and was playing a gay man playing gay characters at a time when that was not the norm. Gay characters, if they existed, were played very stereotypically by straight men. So he hit big for his performance in that movie, and he was the only thing good in that movie. But his star very quickly kind of faded. And it wasn't through necessarily anything bad, it's just he never did anything else that was quite that memorable. And he's always been a decent actor. I will say that he was the best thing in that god-awful Julia Roberts movie. But as I watch this film, what I see is an actor who has a lot to offer and has a lot of talent, and desperately wants everyone to see that talent, to see that they were wrong about him, or, you know, for typecasting him all those years, or expecting him to be one way and not letting him do other things, you know. And so I really feel like this is a performance that he's giving to try to, you know, show the world, look how good I can be. And it's not a bad performance. The problem is, again, it's one note, it's one layer. He's depressed to various states throughout the entire film, and it doesn't give us a full picture of the man or the life. You know, we don't see we really don't see what he lost. We really don't. Yeah, we're shown kind of the end result. We're shown that he lost his wife and his family, but we never knew what they meant to him in the first place. You know, so this movie, I really feel like this needed a director. And this is not a slam on him as a director, but it needed another eye. There's a reason why on stage actors don't direct the plays they're in. Because you need someone in the audience watching you, giving you the notes, because you can't see it. At least with a film, you can record it, watch it, and go, okay, let's do that again. You can't do that on stage. And I really believe that here he needed another creative eye to guide this passion project, and have someone else give him notes and give the story notes. And I really believe that. But here's the thing. Having written and starred and directed many a ego-stroking project of my own, I've received similar criticisms. And I respect those criticisms, but in the end of the day, I say, I told the story I wanted to tell in the way I wanted to tell it. And if you didn't like it, then that's fine, but I did what I wanted. So I have a feeling that if he ever, if Rupert Everett ever watches this show and sees what I'm saying, because I'm sure he will, I'm sure he'd probably tell me the same thing. Thank you for your opinion, but I told the story I wanted to tell in the way I want to tell it. And for that, you got to give the guy some respect. You got to give someone a lot of respect who, told their story their way without any interference, So I hope it came out the way he wanted. I really do. But for me, it just falls short. It falls short. It's got a lot of ambition and a lot of passion. But sometimes you need an outside eye to tell you what, to keep you back from your worst instincts. You really do. So that's The Happy Prince, which is ironically, it's the name of the story he's telling throughout the film. But, The Happy Prince for one of the most depressing movies I've seen in a while. That's saying something. Final grade for this one. Oh, geez. I don't know. This is a tough one. My gut is telling me a D+. But here's what I'm going to do, and I don't do this often, and maybe it's not fair, maybe it's, not good, but you know what, it's my show, it's my review, so I'll do whatever I want. Don't like it, do your own reviews. I'm gonna up that to a C, a solid C, for no other reason than I respect the passion. I really do. Again, as someone who has done similar things myself, and have received similar criticisms as a result, I respect what he was trying to do and the passion with which he did it. So I'm going to say a C+ on this one, but it is not great. And I'm sorry to say that, because I really did want to like this one. So, there's that. So yeah, I had to think about this one a bit. So that's this one. I really got no clever way to wrap this up. So I'm just gonna say my traditional sign off and say, till next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.